So this is Matthew chapter 14, the scripture for the 12th of August. Herod Antipas has served as ruler, or some translations will just use the Greek word tetrarch, of the Galilee region for some time. Now, you may remember that Herod Antipas is one of the four folks who inherited Herod the Great's kingdom of all Judea. Herod Antipas inherited one quarter of it up in Galilee, which is where we get the word tetrarch. Tet is the Greek word, or tetra, for four, and arch is the Greek word for ruler. So there were four rulers over these four provinces. So Herod Antipas has been the ruler of this Galilee region for roughly 30 years at this point. And like most authoritarian rulers, Herod disliked others pointing out his flaws. So when John the Baptist calls out Herod for leaving his first wife to marry his brother's wife, Herod imprisons John. That's what you get to do when you're an autocrat. In the narrative that Matthew presents, Herod seems to be a lecherous man, enraptured by the dancing of his stepdaughter. And this serves as a case study, I think, on how important it is to control our appetites instead of letting them control us. Because of Herod's insatiable nature, John dies because his wife gets him to gets her daughter to ask for John's head on a plate. And John's disciples then claim John's body. This stands in direct contrast to how Jesus' disciples treat his body when he dies later on in the gospel. Only one comes to claim Jesus' body and the rest flee. We'll see all of that in Matthew 27. But when Jesus hears of John's death in this chapter, Jesus seems profoundly impacted. He seems deeply troubled. He seeks solitude. But it's not going to be the case. There are times that it's okay to compartmentalize your emotions, to say, I'm going to deal with this later, and I'm going to take care of life now. Jesus makes the decision to do that. We'll come back to this in a moment. Self-differentiated, healthy leaders like Jesus, they can decide when to deal with emotions and with people on their own terms. And while Jesus is all about self-care, he regularly goes off in isolation and prays with God, here he chooses to care for the crowd. And I want to offer a word of warning to all of you people pleasers out there. If you make this choice because you need the affirmation or the applause from the crowd, you've screwed up. You've made the wrong choice. If you need the crowd to like you, you've made a mistake. Jesus chooses to minister to the crowd, not out of a need for affirmation, not out of an internal compulsion, but because he chooses to out of love. He chooses to delay his ability to deal with his own pain out of love for the crowd. This love pervades even the dinner that he shares with the crowd, because this love is the kind of love where there's always enough, just like the fish and the loaves that he passes out. And Jesus, after sending the disciples and the crowd away at long last, finally takes the time he needs with his Father. And as Jesus finds balm for his soul to quiet the tempest raging within his heart, his disciples find themselves in the midst of a tempest on the Sea of Galilee. In a scene reminiscent of chapter 8, when Jesus calms the storm, it says, "Peace, be still," and the storm quiets down. Jesus, in this story, walks on the water to his disciples. Not only do the wind and the waves obey him, but he's able to do supernatural things with the wind and the waves. Peter, the impulsive disciple, asks Jesus for a miracle. "Let me walk with you, Jesus," he says, and Jesus offers him a miracle. But Peter is so focused on the danger that might befall him that he loses faith. More and more people end up flocking to Jesus, entrusting their sick loved ones to him to be healed. Now I wonder, when has your fear of letting others down kept you from doing God's work? That's all for Matthew chapter 14. Tomorrow, the 13th of August, we'll be looking at Matthew chapter 15. May God bless you in your reading of Scripture.